All right. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Transfer Portal CFB presented by No Context CFB podcast with our Week 11 preview special this week with an interesting slate to say a lot. We've got a lot happening both on and off the field in college football right now, that's for sure. And one of those teams that we will touch heavily on also has a very big game this weekend. We're going to learn a lot about the Big Ten. A lot about the Mountain West, SEC, Pac-12, you name it. Everybody's going to be in there this weekend. Going to be a fun time before the annual lull of the second to last week of the season where everybody's playing the Citadel and et cetera, et cetera. So one last one before rivalry week. Touching a lot of topics, just general reminder, just be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave some of your game picks down below as well, your player focuses, et cetera. We'd love to hear kind of what y'all think. But I guess to go ahead and jump into it. Or excuse me, I haven't even introduced who I'm with yet. Adam, you can start introducing yourself as well. I'm taking this off the rail.
What's up, everybody? Adam Coleman. I've been on a couple of these already, so I'm back. Spread my agenda for Rangers. We did it.
Yeah, gotta shout that out. And then George has been on the gambling.
Yeah, I'm George Novak. I don't normally do the review and the Transfer Portal Gambling podcast weekly, so check that out. Comes out normally Friday, and our card comes out Saturday morning.
And I'm Shehan Jeyarajah. I'm a national reporter over at CBS Sports.
Gotcha. Yeah. Pleasure to have you on. Thanks again for stopping by with us this week. We'll go ahead and get right into it, starting off the field before we get into the more fun stuff for a lot of people. But the recent news surrounding Michigan, of course, everybody's been very well documented, the sign stealing scandal. More and more details seem to be coming out every single day on that front. And we're learning about how many different teams are involved now. Of course, Central Michigan was a big one, but it's being traced back a couple years now. And the question we kind of want to pose out there today is just looking ahead. As Michigan's now accusing other teams of sign stealing as well, what do you think the end outcome is going to be of this? And how do you see Michigan potentially punished either this season or down the line or both? I guess I'll start with you, Adam.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see some form of punishment soon. I feel like you kind of have to. I don't think the Big Ten wants this hanging over their heads for that long. Apparently, you should be seeing something by Thursday. I saw a report on my phone. I think I was driving home and said we might have something. Even today is Wednesday as we're recording, so we might see something tomorrow. I think it's going to get even messier than it already has. I saw that the Michigan state lawyers, 11 of them, have sent a letter to the Big Ten saying don't do anything prematurely, go through the due process or legal action will be coming. So it seems like it's going to end up in litigation. It's not a good look for the Big Ten, not a good look for college football, especially how Michigan might win a national championship. I think it's going to get messy before it gets cleaned up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, George?
I think it's going to get messy before it gets cleaned up, but I don't think it's going to get cleaned up before the end of the season. I think they're going to either try to punt this or they're going to try to get, Michigan's going to file some kind of, way to extend this and kind of push this out for a decision to be made later. Also, it seems like more facts are slowly trickling out. We have other schools that, are now starting to report that they were giving Michigan signs to other teams and stuff like that. Like, I think it was a combined effort of like Purdue and Ohio State or something. So I think there's a lot of information that we don't necessarily know yet. So like Adam said, no one's going to rush to a decision, and we're going to probably drag this on a little bit too long. And then, if Michigan does win a national title, a lot of people are going to want to put an asterisk next to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Michigan understands that this could be in some ways a last ride. Obviously, a lot of upperclassmen players, JJ McCarthy, likely off to the NFL after this season. And I think that in a lot of ways, Michigan is treating this as a season that they're trying to protect. And we've seen that with the NCAA, right? Trying to push them a little bit further, and they're unlikely to look at this before the season is over. And then I think that you also look at, obviously what they're trying to do with the Big Ten. From what we're hearing, if the Big Ten tries to hand down a suspension, the Michigan is going to sue to try to block the suspension. And, it might be more of a delay than an actual block, but they're willing to do that if it's able to prevent it from upending this season. So I think Michigan is trying to get to the finish line of this year, and whatever happens from there happens.
Let me ask y'all, do y'all think this is let's say Michigan wins the Big Ten and even they win a championship, do you think this defense is title strip worthy? You think we see like that bad of it?
No, I don't think that we do. I don't think so, especially because obviously the allegations are coming out right now. I think the question would be more I think the question would be more like, what are there games that are vacated, or is there a suspension handed down? I think that this is more going to be focused on Harbaugh and his staff and, obviously Connor Stallions than it is going to be on the Michigan organization necessarily. But again, obviously it's a new era of NCAA punishment, and they've tended to try to avoid doing things that would hurt innocent players per se. And so I don't think that this is something that that will ultimately lead to games being vacated or titles being vacated.
Yeah, I guess kind of on that same point, you're hearing some mumblings from coaching staffs across the country kind of anonymously that, while the extent of this is still not entirely known, there is a point to be made that in some cases, a lot of teams are doing this to an extent, and it's not having as drastic an impact as maybe people are hyping it up to be. We don't know all the details yet, of course, about the individual games themselves, so who knows on that front as of yet. For me, it's kind of looking short term, looking this year. If I want to see anything happen, if something finite does come out, is the coaches who were a part of this all should be suspended, and more than likely will end up being fired, but at least suspended as soon as that's kind of confirmed. I agree totally with kind of y'all's points about just these are 18, 23-year-old kids that more than likely didn't have much to do with this unless something really drastic comes out. And so punishing them by taking away a potential playoff appearance, a memory that they could have for their lives, you got a chance at national title that you've been working through all year. I could not see that making any form of sense, suspending them in that fashion. So I could more see down the line recruiting limitations, scholarship limits, et cetera, et cetera. You could run through a pretty long list of things that could happen, though. So it's coming, but I kind of agree. I think George brought up the point that this season they're holding out. Next year will kind of be where you see the hammer come down. But
I really hope that there's not like scholarship prevention, because that would hurt a lot of the players. But I don't know. Like last thing that I could see happening though is obviously a lot of people in Chicago are starting to try to get the rumor of Jim Harbaugh moving up to the Bears. So that's an unintended consequence that we'll see. But the actual answer that I think is going to happen is eventually they're just going to adopt the technology of the NFL and actually have like the microphones and the helmets. I know, I'm not really sure why they don't have that yet, or what's like. Why they're trying to, slow roll that. But I think that's going to be eventually what happens, because what do you do from there? Like, it's going to be trying to steal audio or, however, but I think that's the natural progression that they're going to move to.
Yeah, I mean,
totally agree.
Maybe, yeah. I think the answer why they haven't is just not every school wants to pay for that. And say Michigan plays whoever that doesn't have the money for that, you're gonna take the microphones out. You spend all that money, you can't use it. If the school doesn't want to pay for it, what are you gonna do? Unless you buy it for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that ultimately there's a couple pieces. So the thing that's been said for a while is, of course, the cost of it. I think that for FBS college football, that's a non-factor to me. I mean, schools aren't required to, buy cameras to record their own film, but obviously they're going to do it because that's what you do. And so, it's just, I think, something that would pretty easily come along. One other piece of this, though, too, that to acknowledge is there are coaches who have tried to prevent this because they like the game of sign stealing, right? I mean, there are coaches who want signals to be given openly, who don't want it to go to the headset. So I do think, though, that after all of this, it's going to be too much of a no-brainer for people to finally kind of move on and ultimately start to use these helmet headsets heading forward.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I did not think about it from that angle, but yeah, I guess that has just become a full part of the game at this point that coaches are kind of mastering, as you see with a lot of things. But kind of transition to something maybe a little bit more positive, a little bit more upbeat. Just throwing a fun hypothetical out there. At this point in the season, of the teams that are still in contention and can possibly make it, what would your dream of playoff scenario be? Give me the top four in order. We'll start with you, Adam.
My top four in order. See, it's tricky. Okay, I'm gonna go with. I'm trying to be a little bit realistic here too. I'm gonna go with Michigan 1, Washington 2, Georgia 3, Texas 4. And let me explain that.
Shocker.
Because I like seeing strength versus strength. Although Michigan, they are a lot more pass happy this year. They're still a really good running team. Texas is really good against the run. I like seeing that clash of the Titans. Washington, we all know about their passing attack. We know about Georgia's defense. I kind of want to see how those match up. I think there'll be two just very exciting games. So I'm gonna go with those two. George.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a little bit similar to you. I'll expand on that in a second, but I have in order would be Ohio State, and then I say Oregon, Alabama. Actually, no, Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, and Texas. And the reason I think I'm similar to you is that I think the ACC can potentially get left in the dark because I think Florida State has a pretty good chance to drop one, especially in the ACC championship. So I do think Ohio State and Michigan is going to be a little bit of a clash of the Titans. I do like Oregon and Washington, but I think, I think Oregon's only played not the best game against Washington, and Washington has looked vulnerable. So I don't really, know how much I believe in Washington. And then, I think Texas is, the rest of their schedule doesn't look too intimidating, and it's most likely, Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. So that's kind of my rounding out. But yeah, I do see a lot of strength for a lot of those. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4: Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, Texas.
Yeah, I think that for me, the game that I would be most excited to see in the I would like to see it in a first round would be Georgia versus Michigan, because I think that ultimately, and you'd probably have to do this as a 2v3 is probably how it would have to work out. But I think for me, like, my big question coming into this year is, in 2021, Georgia played Michigan and the scoreboard didn't look like it, but they kind of got TCU'd. They got wiped off the planet whenever they played Georgia the first time. It was 33-7, I believe, heading into the fourth quarter. And they scored, no, it was 33-3 rather, heading into the fourth quarter. And they scored like a meaningless touchdown to make it look good. And I still have that question about Michigan. Is this a team? Because we talk about Michigan like it's one of the super recruiters, like it's like a Georgia, an Alabama, an Ohio State. But they've only been able to compete against one of the super recruiters, and that's their rival. We haven't seen them have that kind of success against a Georgia, obviously against an Alabama. We haven't seen them so far. I want to see early on, does Michigan have what it takes to actually hang with one of those teams? Because the 2 years they've made it to the playoff and played good teams from outside of the Big Ten, it's ended up with L's. I want to see early on whether they've got it this year. For me, Washington has to be on the board. I think that I'll have them as my number one team because that gives me the 2-3 of Michigan versus Georgia. I get what you guys are saying. I think that Washington still has another level to hit. I think that Michael Penix Jr. has been a little banged up so far this year, but they're undefeated. They've played a really difficult schedule. I'm curious to see them this week against Utah. If they have a good offensive performance, I think that I feel pretty comfortable with where I'm at. And with my number 4, I'm going to go with Florida State. I just think that they're a top 4 team in the country right now, and I want to see them get their shot against Washington. I think Jordan Travis versus Michael Penix would be a really fun matchup.
Someone's going to make a lot of money from that game.
I do agree. I think this is the year, if any, that regardless of everything off the field, Michigan has to prove that, you could argue their best chance in the past 3 years to win the national championship. They have to prove that they can achieve that level. Otherwise, if they lose another first round playoff game, people are going to be having those doubts of is Michigan a program that is even built for the playoff, or are they Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma potentially? Who knows? For me, at least, I went fairly biased and I went a little bit slightly crazy, I guess, on it, just with some chaos happening. But it's just kind of the 4 teams I would be fine with any 4 of them winning it just to see them raise that trophy. I went number 1. I said Florida State runs the table, and Florida State finishes up number 1. They hop a couple teams that end up losing. Jordan Travis stays hot. In this scenario, he might end up winning the Heisman potentially. That's kind of very deep into that hypothetical. Number 2, I am biased. I put Oregon. I say that they A, run the table, B, exact their revenge in Washington in fairly dominant fashion, probably a 10 to 17 point win. Number 3, I got Texas. I think they take control of the Big 12 throughout the rest of the season. Number 4, just because I've wanted to believe in this team for so long, yet James Franklin makes it so difficult, I'm going to put Penn State there. I said they beat Michigan this weekend. I don't know the exact tiebreaker scenario, if they can even make the Big 10 title game at that point, but Michigan beats Ohio State. It works out in some form. Penn State slides as the number 4 seed. I would more than likely see Florida State coming out on top in this 4. I think they would be the better team, but it's not likely whatsoever. But out of the 4 teams I would want to see in it that still technically could make it, those are the ones I want to see. I'm not a fan. I'm from right outside of Atlanta, peak Georgia country. I cannot go home after they have won 3 championships in a row. They will be insufferable. We've seen enough Bama. I've seen Michigan and Ohio State in there enough. Give me something new. So that's what I'll roll with for now. But speaking of some of those contenders we've kind of been talking about, blockbuster game of the week, Michigan at Penn State, noon Eastern kickoff, big noon kickoff on Fox. Penn State's last chance to kind of stay relevant this season. James Franklin to get over, that hump that he's only managed to really get over once or twice in his career at Penn State of taking down one of the elite teams of the Big Ten and qualify for that Big Ten title game. Michigan looking to block out all the outside noise, run the table the rest of the year, prep for that Ohio State game and be in prime shape for that. Does Penn State have a last gasp effort in that? Does more importantly, probably, do Drew and Lar in this offense, they have an extra gear to be able to do anything against Michigan's defense, which is top 5 in the country in almost every statistical category? I think that's the question I want to see answered this weekend. We'll go around the table. I'll start with you, Adam. But yeah, break down kind of your thoughts of the game, and then also you gotta leave me with the score prediction as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what y'all been saying. How good is Michigan, right? Like outside of the Big Ten, I think that they're better than they have been, because it's kind of like what I said earlier. They seem like a more of a balanced offense. Jason McCarthy, he looks miles better than he did last year when I watched him play last season. It seemed like he was hesitating on a lot of his throws. Like he saw the read and he was like, "Is he open? Is he open?" Now he sees it and he's just gunning it to him. It seems like a more of a balanced offense. He's taking what the defense gives him. It reminds me a lot of how Bo Nix plays. He doesn't really put the ball at risk that much. He did against Bowling Green. I think he had 3 interceptions. That was a bad game. But other than that, I mean, he's. I think this might be his Heisman game. Honestly, if he can ball out, the tight ends, they run a good offense. I think last year they ran the ball for 400 yards or something like that, something insane against Penn State. I don't think it'll be that bad because Penn State has a really good run defense. I like Michigan in this one, and I've been saying all season, I'm not sure. Well, maybe y'all can enlighten me. What's Penn State? What are they great at on offense? Because right now I don't really know.
They're great at
what's their identity? What's their identity?
It should be running the ball. On paper, it should be running the ball.
They're great at running the ball. They just abandon it every single game.
That's what I'm saying. And did you say they abandoned it? Drew Aller, I mean, he's not playing terribly, but I think he has over 250 yards once this season. That was a week 1 against West Virginia. What I just haven't seen it from the Penn State offense to make me think that they can hang with Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they can hang with Michigan. I think the game I'm basically going off of is the Ohio State game, where they are good at running the football. I mean, they have a good offensive line. They have 2 amazing running backs, but they just kind of abandoned the run. And it seems like they're a little disjointed on offense with what they're asking Drew Allard to do. And he was very inaccurate and rattled against Ohio State, and he never really cleaned it up. So I think Penn State's defense is pretty good. I don't think JJ McCarthy is really going to show out too much, but on the other side, instead of, I don't love jumping on the bandwagon of Michigan, but I love when teams handle business the way they're supposed to handle business. And even though they don't have a great strength of schedule, they're just walking in and handling business and leaving. Like the most points they got scored against them was like 13 last week against Purdue. And that was kind of them, stepping off the gas a little bit. And I think that's just a sign of a good team is not letting teams back in the game. And Penn State, if they get behind early, they're not going to be able to lean on the run game, and they're probably going to do the same thing they've always done and just abandon the run and ask Drew Allard to do too many things. So, score prediction for the game, though, I think it's a relatively low scoring game, but I think it's about 24-13 in favor of Michigan.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously not having the best schedule per ESPN. Michigan has the 111th best schedule in the country. That puts them that puts them 1 spot ahead of Buffalo and 2 ahead of UTEP. So they really have not been tested. The only top 50 opponent that they've played to this point is Rutgers, and they kind of struggled a little bit in that game. It didn't look very good, especially through the first half. So look, Michigan's going to win this game. I'm going to preface with that. And they're going to cover too. But the line's 4.5, I think. But here's the thing that I need to know is I am not yet sold on Michigan's offense. And here's what I'm going to say. Okay. They are averaging about 1 yard less per carry this year than they were last year. They are not as good at running the ball. Donovan Edwards had off-season surgery on his knee. He has not been himself. He's only averaging about 3 yards per carry. Blake Corum has not been as explosive as he was his last 2 years before that. I was looking at some stats. Michigan in 2022 was top 25 in plays of more than 30 yards. This year, they're bottom 20 in that stat. So I just don't know that this is a dynamic offense. It's been an efficient offense. It's done enough. I don't necessarily know how that matches up against a really good Penn State defense. The stat to watch for me in this game is that JJ McCarthy and that Michigan passing game rank number 3 in passing success rate nationally. Penn State has the number 1 passing success rate defense. So if Penn State is able to make JJ McCarthy's life difficult, I don't know if Michigan's going to move the ball very well. Now, the flip side of that is I don't think that Penn State has any pathway to moving the ball. Their offensive line was completely destroyed at the hands of Ohio State. And I mean, that's one of the reasons that you don't see them running the ball as much as you think that they should. They don't run block very well. And so I think that heading into a matchup with Michigan, a team that ranks top 6 nationally in rushing defense and rushing success rate, I mean, it's going to be a tough battle for them. I agree. I think that they need to find ways to get their running backs involved early because those are the 2 best offensive players on their team, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, but I just don't think that they have the juice to do it. So I think we're looking at a really low scoring game. I think that it's going to be something like a 17-9 type game.
It's high scoring in the Big Ten, isn't it?
Well, this is the East, though. This isn't the West.
Oh,
this is the
West. We'll say I was over under still at like 28.5 at this point. So they've got that covered on that side. But yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think lower scoring than, I mean, at least some people are thinking at this stage. I think Penn State, clearly they got humbled at Ohio State a couple of weeks ago. I think you saw that the offense is just not quite there yet. Your point about the run blocking is completely correct. I think it's on paper coming into this year, that offensive line was supposed to be at least serviceable, if not a strength of this team. And it's really disappointed because I don't blame Allen and Singleton really too much for these struggles. It has been them just getting whipped up front. I think it'll put too much on Drew Allar's shoulders in this game. But yeah, I think it'll be low scoring just because I think Michigan will struggle to run the ball, as you guys have said. But I do see JJ McCarthy making enough plays in this game to win it. I see this kind of, I believe Adam mentioned it, kind of being a Heisman type moment for him, at least if he, even in this type of game, finishing with like 250, 2 touchdowns, you're looking pretty good based on the two defenses that are on that field and how the pace of this game is more than likely going to be. So I think it's an ugly one. Crowd plays a pretty big factor, as it does every time Michigan walks into that place. But I would say, yeah, Michigan probably 20 to 10, 13, something along those lines, and Penn State ends up with another 10-2 season, and James Franklin's kind of back to the drawing board, I suppose. But moving swiftly along, I suppose.
You got the 20 to 10 prediction.
20 to 10. I will say though, I do expect Drew Allar to play a little bit better than he did versus Ohio State. I think, that's really his first big game going into the shoe like that. It's crazy. It's easy. I feel like it's easy to get overwhelmed. I think he'll be much more calm and relaxed, and hopefully James Franklin dials up a better game plan this time around. But I think something around 24-17 Michigan.
I think we're all confidently on the under. I think it's 44.5. So
is that really? Is it?
Yes. But no, I do think I think we're all on the same page with the -4.5. I just think Michigan's a better football team.
Yeah. But kind of moving along this weekend, just the game that it could be under the radar, could be one of the headliners that you're most looking forward to watching, just even from just a personal perspective. Adam, we'll go with you.
For me, I'm most interested in, I want to see USC versus Oregon. And mainly because of USC. I want to see how can Lincoln Riley, right now USC, they're on the mat, right? They're on the ropes. Their season isn't over. I think they may still control their own destiny. I'm not sure. I have to look at the standings, but they still have a lot to play for. They're down bad right now. Caleb Williams, I mean, people are talking about should he even play anymore, which I think is crazy to even suggest that he should sit out. I want to see Lincoln Riley. Can you pick your team off the mat, go up there, beat Oregon, get some sort of momentum, and let's finish the season strong. Caleb Williams, I think he's no brains. I mean, no one pick no matter what, so I'm not really worried about that. But I want to see how can Lincoln Riley, what is he going to do? Can he rally his troops?
I'll let Shehan go next just because I have two games I want to talk about and I want to make sure we hit both. So I don't want to just take over.
Yeah, well, I think that this Washington game against Utah is going to be a really big one just to, again, figure out where Washington is. I mean, Washington should be able to win this game relatively easily, but I think that, I just want to see how Washington's offense performed. We got a great game from their offensive line last week. Obviously, USC's defense has a lot of issues, but, we haven't had a great Michael Penix game in a little while, just because I think, I'd be curious if he's just dealing with some nicks and bruises right now. That's kind of what it feels like just watching him the last few weeks. I want to see a game where he kind of goes off against a really good defense. This Utah defense is as good as any in the Pac-12, arguably the best in the Pac-12. And, I think that we all feel like Washington and Oregon are on a collision path again. And when I look at that first game, I mean, the difference in that game was Michael Penix versus Bo Nix. Everything around Bo Nix was better than what Michael Penix has, outside of maybe his receiver room, right? But offensive line, defense, running game, all of it, but I think that for Washington, Michael Penix Jr., if they want to be a playoff team, has to be at his best. They're still an undefeated team. They still potentially could withstand a loss if they're able to get to 12-1 in the title game, but I really need to see him looking his best, and I need to see this Washington offense causing some issues for this Utah defense.
It's kind of the time of year when they need to really hit their stride as well, after they've kind of lulled a bit.
Yeah, that game's going to be incredible. And then we talked about the Big Ten West real quick, but I have to bring this up. The game that nobody's looking forward to is the True Sickos game, and let's see if Rutgers at Iowa can top the Iowa visiting Northwestern last week. 28.5 is even generous at Iowa. So, but I feel like that's the game that nobody's looking forward to. But two games I was looking forward to. The first one being Ole Miss visiting Georgia. Obviously, it's a little bit of the how legit really is Georgia. Ole Miss, they've been back and forth a little bit. They're obviously a really good football team, but having a really close call last week against A&M is a little bit taking the wind out of their sails. And then, I mean, Georgia, I think they beat a really good Missouri team who everyone is kind of underrated, and they've been showing off a little bit on offense with Brady Cook. So I think Georgia, this is kind of their time to prove it. They're in the gauntlet with the Missouri game. They have Ole Miss and they have Tennessee next week. So if they could really show out and prove that they deserve, that top spot that they lost, or to stay in the top two, I think I'm super looking forward to that game.
Do we know how many points Iowa has to average now to get that 25 a game?
It's got to be above 30.
Oh no, it was 30. It was at like 33 by like week 5, so it's
really?
Up in the high 30s at this point. I know they're still keeping track somewhere, but after that news that Brian Ferentz is not coming back, it's a little bit more like morbid keeping that tracker.
Part of me is sad that the Big Ten West will no longer exist next year. Part of me is happy about that fact. The ACC Coastal is kind of similar, of a bittersweet kind of ending with that, because I do love the divisions with the most parity, but man, do we need Iowa to not be in the Big Ten title game. But yeah, with that being said, I'll be in person at Mizzou, Tennessee this weekend. Should be a pretty good environment at Faroe. Oregon USC, I was with Adam. That's just going to be Bo Nix versus Caleb Williams. You don't really need much more than that, but I'll go Friday night, UNLV at Wyoming in the just lovely, lovely city of Laramie, Wyoming. Consider it kind of de facto Mountain West title elimination game. UNLV has 1 loss in conference. Wyoming has 2. Still kind of within reach of the Air Forces, Fresno States of the world. Bragg Bowls got another team, tough defense, physical running game, not exactly flashy, but they never are, and they still win. UNLV under Barry Odom, first year, kind of didn't really – an odd hire over the offseason to a lot of people, and he's really put things together there. That offense, even after losing Brumfield early in the season, has been spectacular. So a clash of styles, I think it'll be really interesting. I think, well, we'll pick this one later. I won't lay my pick down yet, but it'll be tough for UNLV to walk into Laramie, a place that, I mean, Texas Tech has gone in and lost this year. App State's gone in and lost, and you've seen it's all been in spectacular fashion. That's primarily what I'm looking forward to, is just because every game in Laramie is guaranteed to be something you've not seen for a long time. So should be a fun one there as the Mountain West title race kind of heats up. Last thing before we kind of get into our picks, though, but as we enter kind of the heat of November and we're getting into these final 3 weeks, everybody's on closing stretches, making bowl pushes, playoff pushes, etc. Who do you guys, you're hopping on one hype train for the month of November. Who are you sticking with and saying is going to be red hot throughout this month and really take the nation by storm in the last month of the season? Adam, we'll go with you.
We talked about this team on the recap. Arizona.
I was going to say that.
Exactly. Were we all going to say that?
Do we all have Arizona?
All right.
Do we all have Arizona?
Well, I'll be.
Fine, I'll think of someone else.
I mean, we can all pick the same one. That might be just, the new darlings of college football. But I mean, 3 straight ranked wins. I thought they played really well. The team is bowl eligible for the first time in what, 5+ years, something like that. I mean, yeah, give me Arizona. Who did everybody have Arizona? Really?
I still want to get on Arizona, but I'm going to pick another team as well.
Yeah, I will say real quick, I did. If I did my math correctly, Iowa would have to average 39.8 points per game over their last 4 in order to get to 325. So
does that include the Big Ten championship?
That does not actually, but that's a good point.
Because they might get blanked in that one.
So then that means
Yeah.
that they'd have to get to 350, I guess. That makes it even more complicated. I'm gonna stay out west. I mean, I feel like the most fun football in the country is being played out west right now. I'm gonna go with Oregon State, one of Arizona's victims. They're just a good football team, man, and they get Washington and Oregon in the last 2 weeks of the year. They are absolutely winning one of those two games, and they potentially, I mean, they'd have to probably win all three to get to the Pac-12 title game, and I think that's probably unlikely. But I mean, they are not fully out of it at this point. I mean, they got to be kicking themselves for losing two games by a combined 6 points earlier in the year. But this is a really, really good Oregon State team. They've handled almost everybody that they've played, and yeah, I think down the stretch they I think have the ability to give both Washington and Oregon a lot of issues. Especially, I mean, Washington they're going to get at home, and they've been a lot better at home. So that might be the one that we need to keep an eye on.
I absolutely love that. That's the trigger a couple of fan bases by saying they're going to beat one of those two teams, and that's a really, really good way for potentially the Pac-12 to get again iced out of the playoffs. So that's
feels like it's going to happen, man. It's a tough finish for both Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, no, I was even going to bring that up during the playoff segment. I was going to say, let's do a segment of just triggering fan bases. How can the Pac-12 get iced out? And it's a pretty clear path of that, but I'm going to go for my team. It's a little bit late to be, potentially jumping on this bandwagon, but Oklahoma State. I think this is the most Mike Gundy of Mike Gundy seasons. People, hyped them up at the beginning of the year. They kind of counted them out after a South Alabama loss in week 3. They've rattled off 5 in a row, and they very clearly control their own destiny. But they have a really winnable, end of the slate the last 3 games. It's at UCF, at Houston, and then at home versus BYU. And since they beat their rival in Bedlam, they're now going to potentially, they would play for the Pac-12 championship if they won those 3 games. They're sitting at right now second in the Pac-12, Big 12 championship if they win those 3 games. So I know that's kind of a little bit the darling of everyone hopping on that hype train, but I mean, their run game looks incredible, and it's just, they're a story that people started to count them out, and they just turned it around and start beating up on everyone. And to upset Oklahoma, I'm always going to be happy with that. So
Mike Gundy always finds a way.
Always, man. He hit the 6.5 win over total, so he's my dude.
This has got to be one of his better. He's had a lot of great coaching jobs. This is probably one of his best, just with how this year started and what he's been working with. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. You looked at that. I remember midseason looking at their closing schedule, and I was like, well, you play the 4 newbies in the Big 12 who have all, for the most part, struggled in their own right. And then you go to Oklahoma in those final 5 weeks. If you upset Oklahoma, you're looking really nice to get in that Big 12 title game, and it's looking like they're going to do it. I'll stay in kind of that Southwest Midwest region. I'll go group of 5 level, though. I'll take the SMU Mustangs, pony up. Red hot as late, Preston Stone at that offense. Before the season, everybody was really hyping them up. Stumbled against Oklahoma and TCU, didn't look like themselves. Just absolutely eviscerated. A light schedule generally by American levels. I'll give you that for sure. At Memphis in 2 weeks will be huge. A quarterback duel between him and Seth Hennigan is going to be must watch. I think those two offenses are going to Memphis, both of them are putting a ton of points up on the board. That's almost a given that it's going to be probably in the 40s and 50s. But I think SMU runs the table, beats Memphis on the road. North Texas and Navy at home are both winnable games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they beat Tulane in the American title game too. I think they knocked them out of the New Year's Six race. I think SMU probably makes a good claim for it, but they more than likely get beat out by Mountain West champ or Liberty if Liberty continues to run the table and Air Force or Fresno State doesn't make a big leap. So give me the Mustangs. I'll pony up. My quick points on Arizona, though, I just wanted to quickly shout out. Tetero McMillan is maybe my favorite non-Oregon player in the country right now. I mean, 6'5", crazy speed, crazy athlete. I think he's going to be I think he should be a first round, top 10, top 15 pick in next year's draft. He'll be a class of 2025 guy, unless I'm mistaken. And Jacob Cowing was the best receiver on this team for the past couple, or one of at least the best receivers on this team past couple of years. He's now just a great wide receiver too. And Noah Fafita's come in and played incredibly well ever since he got in there. So yeah, I think they went out with you, Adam. I think they went out as well. I think they'll be 9-3 at the end, probably not New Year's Six worthy, but they've got Alamo Bowl written all over them, I think, in my eyes. So As tough as it is to say, because Arizona has really broken my heart a couple times as an Oregon fan, but I like their team this year. I will certainly give them that. So, but that kind of wraps up the main segment of things. We'll get into kind of our week picks and start out player focuses. 2 guys, one from Power 5, one from Group of 5 that you'll be kind of paying attention to this weekend, keeping an eye out, Adam.
Well, I'll go with my Group of 5. You kind of touched on them a little bit. UNLV, I'm going with Ricky White, wide receiver from UNLV. He has been balling. It's kind of like we said earlier, that Mountain West is getting tight, and they have Wyoming. They kind of have to hold serve. They have Air Force next week. Fresno State, I think because of tiebreakers, they might already have that locked up. So that a tiebreaker situation works with them. So tough game. Got to go to Wyoming. Ricky White gonna have to hoop. So I'll focus on him, see what he does. And then I said it was his Heisman game, so I had to pick him. Give me JJ McCarthy. It's time to show everybody. This is the game where you make yourself a lot of money, right? Respectfully, no, like I don't say we don't care, but nobody that the games before the Penn State, Ohio State, that's what the scouts are looking at. Go out there, win the Heisman, make some money, boost your draft stock. Give me JJ McCarthy, wide receiver, Ricky White from UNLV.
Yeah, love those two. I'll give mine. So I'll do my Group of 5 first. We already talked about him a little bit, but I got to go back to Preston Stone and SMU. I love SMU's offense. People hyped up Preston Stone at the beginning of the year. People were saying that he was actually an upgrade potentially from Tanner Mordecai, which is a little bit hard to believe, but now he's kind of coming to his own. He's throwing the ball great, and their offense looks fantastic. So love Preston Stone at SMU. And then my other is actually Parker, right in your wheelhouse, but Brady Cook over at Missouri. I think he had this offense, looking fantastic. They hit a little bit of a skid. He had 2 interceptions against Georgia last week, but a big spotlight on him trying to turn it right around, and they're hosting Tennessee coming into town. So can they, get right? This is I think Tennessee's ranked. I forget what Tennessee's ranked, but this is a pretty high ranked matchup for both of them.
13-14.
Yeah,
Tennessee
13-14. So can they kind of, get the offense back on track and see how Brady Cook looks? So those are both of my spotlights, dual quarterbacks.
Is Preston Stone, do we know about his injury? I know he went out late last week.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I heard he was
recently.
probable, but I didn't know if it was confirmed that he's playing yet.
They could debate resting him for Memphis. Maybe even the North Texas's offenses. You don't really play around with them, to be honest, either.
That American race is tight right now. I don't know if we can risk that. Yeah, good pick.
No, and I'll jump right into that American race. The fact that we don't get SMU UTSA in the regular season really sucks. I mean, SMU is going to finish the conference slate undefeated, but it's more about who they're playing than it is just about their strength. But UTSA, big game, like you mentioned this week against North Texas. Frank Harris needs to have a big game. I mean, this is a rivalry game. These two programs don't like each other. And I think, they're playing Rice this week. I mix it. Wires that crossed my head there. But
Texas teams.
But I think that Frank. Yeah, a lot of Texas teams. And I'm deep in the weeds over here. No, I think that for UTSA, they're playing against Rice this week. Rice kind of gave SMU a little bit of a hard time last week. They've played well. They beat Houston earlier this year. This is a game where I think that UTSA needs to come out, stay undefeated in conference play. And if they win this game, they're going to move to 6-0 in the American. And obviously they have a big game against South Florida. And then what could be a play-in game for the AAC championship game to play against SMU potentially would be UTSA going on the road to number 23 Tulane. They got to do everything right before then, though, and this is going to be a big spot for them. In terms of my Power 5 player of the week, I think you have to look at that Penn State-Michigan game because I think that that's just far and away the game of the weekend. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Drew Aller. I think that he needs to show that Ohio State game was a fluke. That he was just not prepared for the moment of going on the road and playing a big defense in a big spot. They're gonna have the home crowd behind them this time. They have obviously the film from that Ohio State game to try to learn from it. And look, again, like I mentioned, I don't think that Michigan's going to score a ton of points. It wouldn't take that much going right for Penn State to make this a much closer game and potentially pull off a monumental upset. So, and the other part of this too is if Drew Aller has a good game, if he throws for 265 and 2 touchdowns, right? I mean, I think that all of a sudden we're looking at Penn State and James Franklin a whole lot differently. So this is a big spot for him. He was rated the number 1 quarterback in the country coming out of school. He's got to prove it in this game.
Yeah, it's a huge spot for him. I hope they let him throw the ball.
Yeah, I think Georgia, you kind of make me feel like a homer with this pick, but I'm going to take another Missouri player. I'll go KAD, Chris Abrams-Drain, cornerback, who's skyrocketed up draft boards, among probably the best DBs in the nation at this point. Tennessee's a run-first team through and through, as they should be with that 3-headed monster in the offensive line. But they know going on the road, they're going to have to take some deep shots. I mean, they do it anyways, but Joe Milton's going to have to play a significant factor if Tennessee's going to go on the road win this game. Squirrel White's out there. Someone's got to cover him. I think KD is very well equipped. He's a great downfield, vertical corner in my eyes. So I think he's going to do great against Squirrel White. I think he locks him up, holds him to under 40, 50 yards, more than likely in Missouri, in a fairly comfortable Missouri win, more than likely. For group of 5, I'll shout out a Southern Miss player probably hasn't appeared on the preview yet outside of potentially the reason because of his name, but Frank Gore Jr., who down year for USM in general, very, very tough in the Sun Belt, but they finally picked up that win over Louisiana Monroe last week. He's playing Louisiana, while high ceiling, tough defense. Yes, they've been really up and down this year. Gore's run for 131 and a touchdown last week against ULM, and then exploded for 247, 2 touchdowns against App State. I think he'll have another big day as he continues to kind of thrive throughout the rest of the year. I think USM will keep it close against Louisiana, but I don't think they'll quite have it in them. But I expect another big one from Mr. Gore Jr. Carrying on his father's legacy as a great running back. But kind of moving forward, go quickly into our kind of game picks. Just go around the table for each one, give a quick thought and a quick pick. We've already discussed this one kind of pretty extensively. The Friday Night Lights out in Vegas, Wyoming. Yeah, excuse me, I said this game was at Wyoming earlier. That's horrible of me. But Wyoming at UNLV. Adam, we'll start with you. Who you got coming out on top in that kind of Mountain West title game elimination?
I think UNLV. I think they hold serve, and I think they figure it out.
I got UNLV also. I got them covering 5.5, but I just think they're a better football team and a better offense.
I'm going to go with Wyoming. I think that they're able to just cause some issues in the trenches, and I don't think that UNLV, really since Michigan, has played a battle quite like this.
Yeah, I'll stick with that. I think Wyoming it's the type of game where they go in there and their style of play just dominates. So I think they can take this one in a more low scoring game than UNLV's used to. Next up, Michigan, Penn State. We've kind of already laid out somewhat of our picks out there. Adam, we'll start with you.
I think you said it. I just don't think I haven't seen it from Penn State's offense to show me that they'll be able to. Again, I agree with Shehan. I don't think they have to score much. I don't think they'll be able to score enough, even though. So I'm gonna go with Michigan.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Michigan also. I mean, my score prediction was 24-13. I think that's pretty accurate, and I don't think Penn State plays from behind super, super well. So I think Michigan comes out early and then just holds serve and beats them by over 10.
Yeah, I mean, a special teams play, a turnover. I mean, Penn State just needs one thing, I think, to go right early to really gain some confidence. I just don't think that Michigan's going to make that mistake. And so I got Michigan covering.
Me as well. I'm on the Michigan covering train. They are reeling in Boulder, Colorado right now. Primetime has been a bit of a rocky show recently, but they got a surging Arizona team at home, just popped up in the CFP this week after 3 straight massive wins. Is this the game that Sanders and co can turn things around, or does Arizona continue on this hot streak that we've kind of all been talking about throughout this?
I'm sticking with Jed Fish. That's why I picked them. More question is, I think they cover. I think it's 10.5. I think I pick them. I'm picking the cover. Sad for Colorado. They're fighting for bowl eligibility, but I don't think this is the week it's going to help them out.
Yeah, we talked about this on the review for the last week, but I don't really see Colorado winning another game for the rest of the year, truthfully. So I have Arizona here, but I have this game closer than 10.5. I think Colorado, Dion is really good at getting his teams up for games, and they don't really quit. We've seen them score late, garbage time points, just continue to put the offense on the field. So I think this game is within touchdown, but I think Arizona is just going to handle business.
Yeah, I don't know. Does Colorado have like a washed NFL defensive coordinator to bring in to try to fix everything? It's just a personnel deal. I think that Arizona is going to give them a lot of trouble, and I think that they run away with this game.
We're big fans of Arizona on this podcast. I will also pick the Wildcats, bear down, etc. I think, they went out the rest of the season. I think they start with a fairly dominant performance. And shout out that defense, which the offense gets a lot of credit, but one of the most improved units in the country overall, Arizona's defenses this year. So definitely impressed from them. I think they'll have another team will have a field day with Colorado's offensive line, I would imagine. Sticking on the West Coast, though, Utah's already pulled off one road stunner this year. Do they have another one left in the tank? The noted pig farmer Bryson Barnes, does he have another heroic performance? Can that defense take advantage of Washington being a bit up and down recently? Adam, what do you think?
I think we get another Kyle Whittingham special. I think Utah, we need some chaos. Pac-12 is where chaos happens. So I'm going to pick Utah. Let's mix things up a little bit.
I'm going to stick with Washington. I think Washington, their offense is just too much, even though Utah's a little bit more physical. But I do like Utah with the points. This is a 9.5-point spread, and I don't think Utah is, 10 points worse than basically most teams in this country. So I'm going to go with Washington to win the game, though.
Yeah, I mean, Utah will make it ugly for a little bit, but I just don't think that Utah has the offense to keep up with what Washington can do.
Yeah, I'm with you all. I think Washington, at least, maybe it's not necessarily pretty again, but I don't think Utah has it left in the tank. I think they get it done. And the cannibalism of the Pac-12 at least is held off for another week. And, depending on what happens between USC and Oregon, technically, which we'll get into later. But Tennessee, Missouri, we talked a little bit about this one. Kind of a battle for second place in the SEC East, more than likely, unless Tennessee does something crazy against Georgia next week. Vols go in there. Great running game. Defense is wildly improved. Passing game has kind of gone the opposite direction this year. Missouri has been one of the most improved overall teams in the country on offense. Defense has really held serve, maybe slightly declined from last year, but a lot of that could be traced to injury, et cetera. But fairly evenly matched, separated by one ranking in the CFP. Adam, who do you got, and what some can consider a pick 'em?
Yeah, this one isn't really that close to me. I think it's Missouri. I don't think Tennessee is that good. I think Missouri is just a lot better, and they're at home, so I'll take Missouri.
Yeah, I called him out in my player highlight, but Brady Cook, I think is the focus is primarily on him this week. I think it's going to be a quarterback battle, but I think Missouri's offense is good. I know Tennessee's offense is good, but I don't think they've seen, aside from Alabama and getting run all over, I think Missouri is a really, really improved football team, and I think they take this one. This one's at home, right? It's at Missouri. Yeah, I think they take it.
Yeah, if I were Tennessee, I would avoid making it a quarterback battle at all costs. But no, I mean, I just think that Missouri's a dynamic team, and I don't think Tennessee is right now.
I'm with you. I think Missouri has the potential. They'll be angry after last week. Another thing I'd like to point out about this game, Tennessee has beat them 128-48 in the past two matchups. I think Missouri is going to take that personally, and they are going to really flip that script this year. Probably, I think they win by 10 to 14 points at least. I don't think it's necessarily all that close. Moving on next, the blockbuster that everybody's been awaiting. New Mexico State, who just clinched bowl eligibility last week, 2 years in a row for the Aggies now, which, unless I'm mistaken, is first time in program history. Going on the road, taking on Western Kentucky team that preseason was the Conference USA favorite and what many considered to be one of the weaker leagues in the FBS. Had all the talent in the world, Austin Reed, Malachi Corley, some great leaders on defense back, and they've really struggled this year, falling behind Jacksonville State and Liberty. They can at least salvage somewhat of it this weekend in Bowling Green. Are you staying on the Aggie side train, Adam?
No, I just it's been so underwhelming this year for them. I'm gonna go with New Mexico State. I think they link up with Liberty in the Conference USA Championship because Jacksonville State they can't play, right? Correct.
No,
I don't believe so. Okay. Yeah, I'm also going New Mexico State. I think they're 4.5-point dogs, but I just think that that Western Kentucky is a little bit too inconsistent, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull it out. So I like New Mexico State here, just outright.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Western Kentucky. I mean, like you said, they haven't been very good, but they're a notable step up from the competition that New Mexico State has played during their winning streak. And so I think it's going to be a tough matchup on the road, and I'm going to go. And Western Kentucky also, I think, needs this game more than New Mexico State does.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the slight desperation for Western Kentucky, I think being, as you said, probably the most talented team New Mexico State's played since, I forget the early season schedule, but since September at least. I think Western Kentucky probably wins at Austin Reed. Probably plays one of his better games of the season. They put some points to the board and get things done. In Athens, Ole Miss at Georgia, a top 10 matchup now. Georgia just passed one of their tougher tests of the season last week. They've got another one for how much people talk preseason about Georgia's schedule being not all that great. They've got a fairly tough November. They've already passed one of the tests, second one this weekend. Is Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin has some tricks up his sleeve? Is he able to walk into a night environment, Sanford Stadium, and pull something out of the hat?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is kind of a 3-game season for Georgia. They took care of Missouri. They got Ole Miss and they got Tennessee. I think they handled business easy. Apparently Brock Bowers is back, so that might help them if that's true. Kirby Smart probably told his team that everybody's picking them to lose all 3. You know, he's the master motivator, have them ready for this game. It's a night game. I don't think they get that many very many night games in Athens, so I'm gonna go with Georgia.
Yeah, a night game between the hedges. I like Georgia here. I think Georgia and Carson Beck specifically have been improving throughout the season. They're still not, the dominant Georgias that that your slightly older brother is used to, but I would say I just don't think I think Ole Miss is too inconsistent. You can't be inconsistent against Georgia. So I think Georgia handles business at home, not super easily, but I think they control the entire game.
I think it'll be super easily. I think Georgia runs away with this game. I mean, Ole Miss, they lose by 2 touchdowns to an Alabama team that I think, especially at that time, was still worse than what Georgia is now. I mean, they've played a lot of teams that aren't very good close. I've joked all year that I think that Ole Miss is the SEC's Mendoza line, where if you beat them, then you're probably pretty good, and if you lose to them, you're probably not. And I think Georgia's very good. I think that they win by 2 touchdowns at least.
Yeah, I think big difference in this game might be Ole Miss has not, since that Bama game, played a team that's able to physically dominate them up front. I think Georgia will, and I think that's going to disrupt Ole Miss on both sides of the ball. And yeah, I see it, 31-13, something along those lines. I don't think Georgia's going to be worrying too much. I will say 3-game season. Georgia Tech's a hot team right now, and crazy things have happened in that rivalry. Not calling it by any means, but I don't think they should take Georgia Tech lightly either, just because rivalry games, weird things happen. But that would be something else. Speaking of rivalry games where crazy things could happen, Texas at TCU, not the most noted rivalry in the Big 12, but technically they do have some disdain for each other, I would imagine Adam can speak on. But on the road in Fort Worth, is this an upset trap game for Texas, or is this TCU's team that has been struggling? Are they down and out?
I'm not gonna say they're down and out because they have a really good coach and they play hard. And I don't know, Texas quarterback situation is very shaky. If Malik Murphy doesn't play, I think Texas loses this game. I'm sorry, if Quinn Ewers doesn't play, I think Texas loses this game. I think TCU has a really good passing attack. I think they're second in the Big 12 despite getting absolutely destroyed 2 weeks ago and they only scored 3 points. Texas's weakness is the passing. They defense. It is what it is. It's always been like that all year. It was like that last year. I just, from what I've seen from Malik, the mistakes, I'm not sure if he makes those same mistakes. I think they lose. But if Quinn Ewers plays, I think we win.
I respect the not wanting to jinx it, so
I'm
do.
being honest. Being honest.
No, I'll be a little bit more of a homer. I am a Texas fan as well, like my little bobblehead back here. But I just think Texas is a better football game, and they're just going to rely on their run game probably. Malik Murphy looked okay to start last game, and then it almost looked like he had the yips. He was just missing like wide open guys crossing 5 yards in front of his face. So we talked a little bit about it on the review. I think another week of practice, hopefully that calms it down. And if they can just get out to a lead, I think they just kind of hold the lead. I don't really think it's going to be a pretty game, but I think Texas is just able to handle business and just kind of get out of there with a win. I just really hope it's not in overtime again.
No, I mean, one thing to watch for, these are two of the worst red zone teams in all of college football. Neither of them wants to score in the red zone. If I were one of these defensive coordinators, I'd just be like, get to the 20-man and tackle them, like, just because they can't do anything from there. No, so but the big difference has been that Texas is explosive enough to score outside the red zone. They just can't score when they get there. And so I think for me, I just struggle because TCU's been able to move the ball all right between the 20s, but a lot of it has been built on the run game, and I do trust Texas stopping the run. Let me say this too, though. If TCU's offensive staff wants to get back in the good graces of their fan base, which they are currently not, I expect them to come out with some stuff. I expect them to take some shots. I expect them to run some tricks. I mean, this is, in a lot of ways, this is TCU's season right here, because they're not going to be in contention for a good bowl game. They're not in contention for the conference. This is the last time that these teams will play, of course. But Texas handled that moment pretty well the other times, right? I mean, beating Kansas, beating Baylor, like beating Houston. Obviously, that one got a little squirrely. So I think that Texas comes away with a win, but again, I mean, if I'm Kendall Briles, I'm up all day and night trying to think of ways to attack that defense, because this is one where I think your career is going to be broken or made at TCU.
I mean, yeah, not the same in every way, but some essences of Oklahoma State, that rivalry ending, and Oklahoma leaving the conference. Now you got TCU, a home underdog, having a chance to kind of pull off a much more drastic upset, but one nonetheless. I think Texas gets it done. I think the running game really steps up for Texas this week, and even if Murphy struggles, I think that allows them to score enough to get out of Fort Worth with a win. But I think it's going to be another Houston-like game where they escape with this one, and they're just happy to be 9-1 walking out of there. Tobacco Road rivalry, football edition. Duke at North Carolina. Two teams also wildly up and down seasons. Duke, you've obviously had the Riley Leonard injury saga that's hurt them. You had the opening win over Clemson, falling to Notre Dame, and then Louisville performance, etc. It's been a roller coaster ride. UNC, very similar defense that looked improved early in the season, has struggled mightily recently. Drake May's still been his usual self. Offense has still been doing well, but in Chapel Hill against their arch rivals, this game, no matter how the two teams are playing, this is one of those that generally ends up being close. Who do you think comes out on top in a game that with two teams, well, probably not Duke necessarily in this, but North Carolina still with a chance to backdoor their way into that ACC title game as well?
Yeah, I mean, and I just don't see how Duke can win this game, honestly. I think North Carolina's just a better team. I love Duke's defense, but the offense, I just don't see how the production right now. So more North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm also going North Carolina. I do think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think Duke's defense is definitely going to get up against North Carolina, but North Carolina was on a little bit of a skid, and they played Campbell last week, and it was essentially a get-right game, just getting, a chance to blow them out of the water at home. So I think that now, Drake May getting his feet back under him after 2 losses in a row. And beating Campbell last week, I think they're going to be able to pull it out. I do think it's within a 10-point game though, just because I think Duke's defense is still pretty good.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to be able to string drives together. I think the defense is going to be on the field for too long. I don't think that Duke can hang. I'm going to North Carolina to cover.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think, Duke isn't able to score enough. A quick shout out. I'm already on Hampton. Drake May gets all the credit from that offense, but Hampton himself is also a phenomenal back and definitely deserves some recognition for what he's been doing recently. Last but not least, to wrap things up, prime time out west, some Pac-12 after dark action. USC at Oregon. Trojans reeling as of late. Oregon razor thin margin for error, but they've looked like one of the best teams in the country these past couple of weeks. Does Caleb Williams have one last dance, one last heroic performance on the road in Eugene to pull off a stunner and just ruin Oregon's playoff hopes? Or do the Ducks take care of business and potentially, a defense that athletically is probably best suited to defend Caleb Williams this season? Are they able to slow him down?
I think this is peak Pac-12 cannibalism right here. This is the week. You got Utah beat Washington. I think USC is going to go beat Oregon. I think they're gonna, like I said, I think Lincoln Riley's gonna rally his troops. Caleb Williams, he's gonna show everybody that he's still the guy. I don't think the defense is gonna do anything still, but I think USC I think they figure it out, and we get some chaos packed in some Pac-12 after dark.
I thought you were going to say this is the year Bo Nix has improved so much on this new. No, I'm kidding. No, I have Oregon this game. I actually have Oregon kind of big in this game. I don't. I think USC is kind of reeling. I think Caleb Williams will probably play okay, but it's not going to be the same as other games where it's just a volley back and forth. I think Oregon's defense is a little bit better than that, and. Yeah, I think Oregon also has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. So they're not going to let up at all. And they really, really need to show off a little bit. And I think they're going to win pretty handily.
Yeah, if this game was in Los Angeles, I'd feel a little bit more like this could be a trouble spot because it's, potentially a sort of dead cat bounce kind of game for USC's defense. I think that USC offensively has been really good. I think they're going to be able to get some stuff going against even this Oregon defense. But what it comes down to is, let me put it like this. I think the more that Bo Nix throws the ball, the worse it is for Oregon. They should just run right over this defense. Don't even throw. I think that Oregon is capable of doing this. We saw them do that essentially, for the second and third quarter against Colorado. We saw them do that for long stretches against Utah. Just make the game easy. And I think that Oregon, one of their best qualities is I don't think that they beat themselves very much. And so I think that just ultimately that makes me lean Oregon. But I do think this game will be competitive heading into the fourth quarter, and then Oregon will probably just pull away.
Yeah, I mean, very, very similar. I'm blanking on the year now, but USC did go in there as a pretty heavy dog, Oregon as a favorite. I believe it was early 2010, somewhere around that era. And USC pulled off the upset with an explosive offense. 2011, yeah, it was blackout game for Oregon, same as this weekend. And they marched in there and they took them down behind. I mean, defense showed up out of nowhere. Offense played well. So who knows? Could be a bit of deja vu. I think Oregon's offense, I think your point that the running game, this offensive line is the best in the Pac-12, among the best in the country. Oregon State can say some things about that, sure, but I think Oregon's got that. I think they should just be able to physically dominate this game. Keep the ball out of Caleb Williams' hand should really be the goal at the end of the day. And it'll be high scoring, but I think Oregon gets it done. On a personal side note, as an Oregon fan, I am much more concerned about, yes, they're not very good this year, but in 2019, Oregon walked into Tempe, Arizona, second to last weekend of the season. Same record, probably going to be the same CFP ranking, and they lost that game to freshman Jaden Daniels and a better Arizona State team. Next week, Oregon does the same thing. We will see how they fare in that one, but they most certainly cannot look ahead of USC. That is for sure. But regardless, that'll wrap things up for us here on the Week 11 preview pod on the Transfer Portal CFB presented by No Context CFB. Thank you, Adam, Jordan, Shehan, for joining me today. We had definitely some good discourse. Got that Michigan situation, kind of ironed that out a little bit more. Wanted some playoff talk in Michigan, Penn State. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Leave, as I said before, leave game picks, player focuses, who you're really looking out for this weekend. Call your upset shots as well. all that good stuff. We'd love to hear from you guys. But yeah, that'll wrap it up for us here. We'll see y'all more than likely Sunday or Monday when we recap all these games that we just talked about. So see y'all then.